So what markets is Bitcoin disrupting? Well, or PayPal. It's disrupting store of value assets, value itself. That's where it's competing. They're well. So the bond market, the real estate market, equities, right? Stocks, cash, offshore bank accounts, right? Those types of assets. We think it's realistic to capture 5% of those store of value assets. That would push the price of Bitcoin up to 45 trillion. Divided by the 21 million Bitcoin that there are, brings it to about a $2 or $3 million per Bitcoin price. 5%. So we're already seeing that 5% number floating. We're already seeing people move to it. And I think 5% is very realistic, maybe within the next decade for sure. And that puts it at a price of $2 to $3 million per Bitcoin.
In a recent interview, seasoned entrepreneur and investor Mark Moss reveals the disruptive power of Bitcoin and how it's set for a meteoric rise. According to Mark, instead of competing with payment systems like Visa or PayPal, Bitcoin is going head-to-head with traditional store-of-value assets like bonds, real estate, and stock. Moss calculates that Bitcoin could grab 5% of these markets, pushing its price to $2 to $3 million per coin within the next decade. With institutional investors already flocking to Bitcoin, this bold forecast is quickly becoming a reality. Now, let's hear from Mark Moss as he reveals why and how Bitcoin's price could soar to $2 to $3 million per coin. Give this video a like to show your support, subscribe for your daily dose of crypto news, and let's begin. Before we continue with the rest of the video, do check out daily 5-minute crypto newsletter with all the latest crypto and Bitcoin news. It's a fantastic analysis of on-chain crypto data and breakdowns, and the best part is it's absolutely free. They'll cover expert predictions, breakdowns of on-chain crypto data, and any breaking news you need to know, all in a nutshell. Click the first link in the description and enter your email to join over 50,000 others in becoming a better crypto investor right now.
Maybe the easiest way to understand this is I've been a venture capital investor for over a decade. And so the way that we think about this from a venture capital investor, because as a VC investor, you're trying to invest in a brand new technology that's not really there today, right? Trying to catch it very early. It works. What markets am I disrupting? What's the total valuation of those markets? And what percentage do I think is realistic to capture from those markets? So Bitcoin, we could look at sort of the same way. So what markets is Bitcoin disrupting? Well, Bitcoin is not disrupting tech or payment networks. It's not disrupting Visa or PayPal. It's disrupting store of value assets, value itself. That's where it's competing. So then we'd go, okay, well, what's the addressable market, the TAM, total addressable market, for financial assets or store of value assets? And so store of value assets would be assets that you buy just to store your wealth. So the bond market, the real estate market, equities, right? Stocks, cash, offshore bank accounts, right? Those types of assets. Now, some of them are what we would consider utility. So I own a house that I live in, but then I also own real estate that I invest into. So then we have utility assets, and then some stocks are utility, but then a lot of it is just store value. So if we add that up, we have about $900 trillion. So then the question is, well, what percentage do we think is realistic to capture from those markets, and over what period of time? That's how we'd come up with a future valuation. So what we can see is that Bitcoin, I don't know what it is today, about $1.5 trillion. Gold's at about, I don't know, $14 trillion. So it's about a 10x just from there. So how much do we think we can capture from gold? A lot of people say we could capture the whole gold market or surpass it. How much from real estate? How much from bonds, et cetera? And so if we'd say, well, we think it's realistic to capture 5% of those store value assets, that would push the price of Bitcoin up to 45 trillion. Divided by the 21 million Bitcoin that there are, brings it to about a $2 or $3 million per Bitcoin price. Now, yeah. Mark, that math checks out, Mark, but do we think it's realistic to capture 5%, and over what period of time? Well, let's just take a look. So going back to my example of Uber was able to capture 5% of the taxi market in less than a decade. Airbnb was able to capture 5% of the hotel industry in less than a decade. We saw just last week a pension fund in Europe, I think it was called Cambridge, allocated now 3% of their fund to Bitcoin. Yeah. So 5% allocation doesn't seem that far off. It's realistic. It's happened many times in the past. It's happened with Uber and Airbnb. We're already seeing funds doing this. Paul Tudor Jones, billionaire, he's saying 5%. So we're already seeing that 5% number floating. We're already seeing people move to it, and I think 5% is very realistic. Maybe within the next decade for sure, and that puts it at a price of $2 to $3 million per Bitcoin.
Decrypt reports that Bitcoin is on track for global adoption due to Trump's recent presidential win and his crypto-friendly stance. Investors believe this could accelerate digital asset adoption in North America and Latin America, where Bitcoin and stablecoins are already crucial for inflation protection and remittances. In countries like Argentina and Venezuela, battling high inflation and currency instability, Bitcoin trading has skyrocketed. Experts expect Trump's policies, like a national Bitcoin reserve and fewer regulations, to fuel even more crypto growth, with the region already processing over $85 billion in transactions annually. With clearer regulations on the horizon, market confidence is rising, and institutional interest in Latin American crypto is soaring. What do you think of these developments? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's go back to Mark Moss as he reveals the massive global impact Bitcoin could have.
I think we could be sitting at the precipice of a massive change globally. In my opinion, and based off of historical cycles, it looks like the world and human nature always takes things too far and then overcorrects too far and then goes too far. And so we went way too far towards this centralization, the dollar, the U.S. world-led order, the dollar homogeny, the UN, the WEF, all of these things. And I think the world is sick of that and it's pushing back against that. And so we can see this globally with China and Russia and the BRICS breaking out, but we can see it in the United States as well. What this election was in the United States wasn't about Trump or Kamala. It was really we the people versus the deep state establishment. And most Americans knew that. It wasn't a personality contest or a beauty contest. It was about the people, independent, decentralized private citizens against a global order. The whole interview. I believe that Bitcoin solved one of the oldest problems of humanity. And if you want to make money in the world, you have to solve problems. And the bigger problems you solve for the more people, the more money you make. You figure out personal computers and bring them to all the people in the world, like Bill Gates, you become one of the richest people in the world. And so one of the oldest problems in humanity is, how do I store my property in a way that it can't be stolen? So the original cavemen, like, you're going to come kill me and take my chickens. So then we band together, and then it's this village against this village, and it's this kingdom against this kingdom, and now it's this government against this government. And Bitcoin answered that. And it allows me to now hold my property in a way that cannot be diluted or seized or censored. And so I believe everybody should take advantage of that. That's a pretty big deal, and we should definitely do that. So one, I highly recommend it, but I do understand that there's differences for different people for different situations. The other thing I would say is that Bob Burnett from Barefoot Mining, he's one of my partners in a mining operation that we're in. He's brought to our attention publicly that Satoshi actually created two digital scarcities at once. So the first digital scarcity was only 21 Bitcoin. 21 million. The second digital scarcity is the block size. So we can only get so many transactions per block. And there's only a block every 10 minutes. And I forget the exact math, so fact check me on this, but I think it's about 400,000 transactions a day. So how does that work when 8 billion people are using it? The answer is it doesn't. And now using AI and combining UTXO inputs and outputs, maybe we double, triple, quadruple that number. Maybe we get to 1 million or whatever, but it's still not going to handle everybody. So the reality is, if we think down into the future, the majority of people probably won't self-custody their Bitcoin or transact on the main chain. It'll just be, unfortunately, physically impossible to do that. So I think you have to understand all those things, but to sort of put a pin back into this, yes, it solved the oldest problem in the world. I can custody on my own. I should certainly do that if I'm able to, if I feel competent enough to do that without putting myself at risk. I think about generational wealth, and Bitcoin really kind of makes you think even more about that, because you have this generational asset, an asset that could sit there and save its value for 1,000 years, right? And then I have kids, and my kids are getting older, so I'm starting to think about that. I'm getting older, so I'm thinking about that. Well, the entire financial system and education system is built on this philosophy of dying with zero. There's a best-selling book titled Die with Zero. And so basically the goal is to get a good job, save for retirement. So that means I'm going to save a bunch of money to that. Then I can stop working and I can live off the savings. And hopefully my savings doesn't run out before I die, which I think is a horrible idea. Like, why wouldn't I push the value to the future instead of stealing value from the future with debt? And so when I think about that, the argument to that is, why would I want to give my kids any money? It's going to make them lazy. It's going to make them entitled. It's going to ruin my kids. And I agree. Like you give things to people, they do become lazy and entitled. But again, there's nuance. And so, yes, that could happen, but I could also teach my kids properly and train them other ways so that doesn't happen, for example. But basically, the idea of the family constitution is by setting up a system where I can pass my wealth on down to future generations, maybe my kids, but could be my great-great-great-grandkids. But the Constitution sets a set of rules or laws around the way that money works. So, for example, the Constitution of the United States, it restricts what the government can do with that. So my Constitution, for example, for my family, is a set of these. So it's one, what are things I believe? What are things I believe about the world? So I believe that we should provide value to the world. I believe that we should be building our skills and we should be trying to solve problems for others. I believe we should be giving to the world more than we're taking. I believe we should be helping others with our money. I believe that trusting mainstream advice is almost never wrong. I believe that we should take personal responsibility. We should learn to manage our time. Like, these are things I believe. And so I write all of that into my Constitution. And then I want to pass those ideals down to my future generations, but I also want to put a set of rules. So then, for example, my kids, grandkids, etc., future generations, they're not able to just like take the money and do nothing. They can't just sit on the couch and do nothing and get money. But for example, if they want to start a business, the trust could evaluate their business idea. And if it seems like they've thought through it pretty well, then we'll give you the money for the business. You want money to buy a house? If you're able to qualify for the house, you make enough money, you can qualify, then we can give you the money to help you with the house. So then the trust could be used as a way to help them without giving them a handout that holds them back or harms them, right? And so that's what I want. I want to give my kids that leg up. I want to let my kids build on top of what I've already built. So I think about my life as like a block of time. My life and the things that I've accomplished and built is the proof of work of my life. And my life, hopefully 100 years, is one block. And I want my kids to add the next block and each generation to keep adding that block, but only in a way that they can add value to those blocks and not take back. So that's what the Constitution is. It's a well thought out plan that pushes your thoughts, your ideologies, your truths forward, and then puts strict requirements on what people can and cannot do with the money or have to have access to the money. So then it somewhat preserves it moving forward. It can pay for education. It can pay for courses and things like that.
As Bitcoin rises and freedom of speech grows, we could see a new era of economic growth and global power. Moss points out that while the US might maintain its influence in finance, the real change will come from education, freedom of expression, and embracing innovations like Bitcoin. With Bitcoin solving some of the world's oldest problems, the revolution is just getting started. Moss is optimistic, believing Bitcoin has the power to completely transform the world. What do you think about Mark Moss's bold prediction? Do you think Bitcoin can really hit $2 to $3 million per coin in the next decade? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for sticking with us until the end of the video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this discussion, and subscribe for more valuable discussions on building true independence through crypto. See you next time. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.